Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
Welcome back to the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, David S. Dawson. Whitney Wegman Wood unfortunately cannot join us today due to internet technical difficulties. So we're going to charge ahead without her and bring on our guest, Mr. Neal Hallford.
Good afternoon. I was going to say good morning, but we all live in different universes.
Somewhere in the world, it's morning.
In the morning. I'm usually a night owl, so this is usually when I'm asleep, or just getting up. So this would be my morning. Yes, good afternoon to everyone, or whatever time zone you are in.
How you doing, Neal? It's been a while since we've had you on the podcast.
I'm doing
pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just like the last time you and I would have seen each other is whenever I did that crazy lockdown con, which we had for those of you who aren't aware of that, is we did a convention for the two major years of the pandemic. We did two virtual conventions. Right here, same little set here, and we had some really cool virtual panels, but David had actually volunteered to help us, but like a lunatic, I decided to do everything myself, because that's just the way I am. But anyway, so that was probably the last time that we did the virtual thing, and of course, we fortunately at least had at least one opportunity to bump into each other live since then, and so we're very, very happy to be able to do that.
Yeah, we did catch a couple movies together recently.
That is true. We saw The Wrath of Khan whenever it came back out on screens, and we saw something else. I can't remember, but all classic movies.
Was it
one of the horror movies? Did we go see one of the
Poltergeist?
Poltergeist. That's right. We saw Poltergeist.
Yes. So it's an 80s movie. I know it's an 80s movie.
Well, last year was fantastic because it would have been an anniversary for 30th anniversary for 1982, and which would have been the 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
The 40th anniversary, and 82, as I like to talk to people about, was a gigantic year, because if you were a teenager in 1982, it was probably the best summer of sci-fi, and nerdy films ever. And so and I'm seeing several people kind of popping in and saying hello or whatever, and some names and faces I recognize. So it's nice.
A few people coming in from Twitch. We got someone from Switzerland on Facebook.
Yes, I can't see their comments here, but maybe if anything pops up that you see is interesting that I should address or whatever, I can talk about.
I'll definitely call it out if something comes up that needs to be absolutely addressed.
But
to all our viewers, hello.
So of course you get to a certain age, anniversaries become important. So we were nerding out about the 82 anniversary of all those classic films, because it was Poltergeist, Tron, Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, Dragon Slayer.
Dragon Slayer.
I think Blade Runner was that year. I mean, it was just an insane summer of all these amazing sci-fi.
I think it was really when the effects of Jaws and Star Wars kind of hit that full stride in the kind of blockbuster cinema.
E.T. was that summer too.
Yeah, blockbuster cinema really hit its role at that point.
Yeah, and so that was
Susie from Mobile Film is here. Hi, Susie.
Oh, hi, Susie. And so I'll actually be chatting about her here in just a minute or whatever. So. But anyway, but yeah, so, but it's been nice to be able to get out and see people in person again and hang out with them or whatever, still doing the mask in a lot of places, simply because, I have a whole fistful of conditions that would be bad if I actually caught COVID.
You and me both. And I had a podcast last night. I live streamed last night to give everybody the kind of health update on me, because
you're looking good, man.
I'm learning so much. Thank you. Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah, I still, after my little health crisis back in 2020, I lost a bunch of weight, and then I gained some back, and I'm losing it again. So I just need to be better and stay away from things that I'm not really supposed to be eating.
I will say this: Ozempic has like been a godsend. It's completely changed my appetite pattern, and like I'm able to eat like at reasonable levels now.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, I got put on a whole fistful of new medications, but I'm sure that all the people listening to you really want to listen to our pitches for medications here. That's the bad thing about getting older is sitting around. Oh, this is what hurts today, and this it's painful.
Well, I was mentioning a few episodes back. This podcast is 10 years old.
Wow. That's
like
amazing.
I've been doing the intellectual for a long time.
Yes,
so I think it's inevitable that becomes part of the conversation, right?
So let's see. That would have been so if it's 10 years, that would have been around the time you and I met.
It was about
maybe a year or two after,
year and a half or 2 years before we met. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so yeah,
crazy, man. Crazy. But it is kind of fitting because you're on to talk about an anniversary.
I am here to talk about an anniversary.
This podcast started on the heels of my 20th high school anniversary. My 30th high school anniversary is this summer. And you are celebrating the 30th anniversary of Betrayal at Krondor.
Betrayal at Krondor. And so, I have a handful of folks that I see that have dropped in that I know who have some idea about what that was. But for your viewers who have no idea what that game was, Betrayal at Krondor was a role-playing game that we released. It was made by a company called Dynamics up in Eugene, Oregon. And published by Sierra Online, which is probably a name that more of you are familiar with, because back in the day, Sierra Online, they were the publishers for all of the big major adventure games back in the day. So King's Quest and Space Quest and all those wonderful mysteries like Laura Bow, all those incredible adventure games that you kind of think about in the late 80s and early 90s. Sierra Online was the place that was making that stuff. So
I just pulled up some gameplay that's going on behind us now.
Yeah, so
I gotta tell you, when I pulled this up to prep for this, it so threw me back to my like late high school years, college years, like playing games in this style. Just what a absolute joy to look at it and go, oh yeah.
Big old, it's not quite 8-bit, but still big old chunky pixels, but it's kind of
that's
funny.
what the kids are all playing today. Like, you look at the Roblox and Minecraft and all that, it's all the big chunky pixels. Like they love that look.
And they don't mind, they that's something that they actually embrace. And so but yeah, so this is, it's weird to look at this now and you think about all the games that are out there and, just how amazing the graphics are and how sophisticated those engines were. But what you're looking at right here, this was state of the art for the time. Whenever we came out, we were the first, let's take it back. We were the second game to release in fully 3D. And so we did that by taking the, Dynamics was well known for making a series of warplanes simulators, and so they were working on Aces of the Pacific while we were working on this, but Red Baron and some other really well-known flight sims. And so whenever we came time that we decided we were going to make this role-playing game, we took the engine that they had for their flight sim and put it on the ground. And of course, we had all kinds of problems with it because it wasn't designed to be in contact with the ground.
Right.
that was sort of not the thing you wanted to do in the flight sim. But anyway, but this was really hot stuff back in the day. And and so one of the things about the game is it was licensed from, there's a big fantasy author by the name of Raymond E. Feist. He's I don't even know now how many books that ended up being in this series of books. but a lot of them. At the time, there were only, let's see, four. There were four that Ray wrote himself, and then there are 3 books that he wrote in conjunction with Janie Wirtz called the Empire series. But a whole lot of books that were available even back then. But whenever we got the license, the original idea is that we're going to take the second or the third book in this, or no, actually second book in the series called Silverthorn, and make an adaptation. And that was the concept of the CEO, Jeff Tennell, who was running the company. But whenever he got the license, he asked Ray Feist if he wanted to write the game, and he said, "You can't afford me." And so they went and grabbed me, who was very affordable. And I was living in Los Angeles whenever they got a hold of me. I was working for a game company called New Roll Computing. And they brought me up to Eugene. And boy, what a shock and a change of life that was. From living out in Van Nuys, with my next door neighbors, and not in the same building, but a couple of buildings over. That was actually where Courtney Love and what's his face were living before Nirvana really hit it big. But to go from living in Los Angeles Metro to living in Eugene, Oregon, which was a town of 100,000 people, a little university town full of old deadhead hippies at the University of Oregon. That was definitely a big kind of change of life. But anyway, so I hopped in, and we decided that rather than adapting the one game, we're going to create a brand new game set sort of in between 2 different books. There was a Darkness at Sethanon and a Prince of the Blood, and there was a 20-year gap between them. So we said, let's create a brand new game. We'll drop this right in between the 2 of them. And so that was sort of the origins of this particular game. But anyway, it was one of those things that it took us about a year and a half, almost 2 years for us to produce. Took a lot longer than they were anticipating, but thankfully we had management that believed in the project and believed in us. I almost died while making it, because I landed in
that's becoming a repetitive theme with you.
Yeah, I know. I need to stop doing that. But yeah, I was kind of on people talk about game development and the crazy kind of crunch level kind of stuff. And so during the last 3 months of the game, I was working pretty much 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. And even though I was in my early 20s, there's only so long you can do that while only eating pizza and Mountain Dew.
Right.
Not the lifestyle of champions.
No, not by any means.
And so I landed in the hospital. I didn't go to the hospital per se, but I went to had to go to the emergency room because I was on the verge of having a really bad something happen. And the doctor said, "You're not going back to work for a week." And so I stayed at home. A good buddy of mine lived down the balcony from me, and he came in and checked on me, he and his girlfriend. At one point, he caught me trying to work on my computer at home. And so he came in and stole the cord from my computer so that I couldn't use it. So I was forced to sit around and do nothing but like watch TV and just sleep and relax and kind of recharge the batteries. But the game ended up being extremely successful. Really, really lucky about another thing that was we kind of talk about interesting things at the moment. I was talking earlier about the 3D aspect of the game, but it was also the first role-playing game to be shipped on CD-ROM.
Right.
And so that really set it on fire, is because our sales had been honestly so-so, though honestly they'd been exactly what we had predicted they were going to be. But because we were talking to Sierra Online, they had kind of different expectations, because role-playing games and adventure games, at least back in the day, their sales, they sold in a different way. Role-playing games tend to sell, back in the day, would sell more by word of mouth than by advertising. And so adventure games would sell like crazy for about 6 months, and then they just kind of fall off. And so our spiked up a little bit, but it didn't go up as high as an adventure game did. But then it sold consistently for like 5 years, you know. And then once we hit CD-ROM, then it really skyrocketed.
Right.
And the advantage of the CD-ROM was not just that you know, you didn't have to load 6 different floppy disks into your computer to install and load it. But you we were able to take advantage of the fact that because it was on CD, our musician was able to come in and give us a really gorgeous score that was available on the CD. Plus, we had an interview with Ray Feist on it. So there are all kinds of bells and whistles that were added to the CD-ROM version of the game. And
I just remember how cool it was when games started shipping on CD-ROM. It was like, you felt like you were doing something completely new and in the future.
Yeah, it's just this big shiny thing,
shiny disc.
Felt like, I'm in Star Trek world now,
Yeah, totally.
And so, and of course, that was when everything suddenly everything was multimedia. It's just like, here's your multimedia, encyclopedia, your multimedia word processor. Any excuse, anything they could come up with, so we can say, yeah, and we can throw a video clip in here or a sound clip, and that just like, oh my God, the world has completely changed. And and the World Wide Web back in the day was, other than AOL, you might hop onto
Gopher Stacks and
Gopher Stacks, and you go into the bulletin boards and all of the before there were MMOs, you had all the MUDs, so just text-based games. You go in and man, those were maddening. I love MUDs, but man, those were nuts. But anyway,
well, even Betrayal at Krondor has a lot of text in it.
It has an enormous amount
there
of
are portions of it. It's like reading a book.
It is. It is.
Which I have to say, because I watched a bunch of gameplay this morning, just because I got lost in watching the game. But the writing in it is gorgeous. Like, I mean, kudos to you. Like, lovely writing within the context of the game and the story that you're telling. It was really enjoyable to listen to these players reading it out loud while they're playing. Like, because I remember doing that when I was that younger and playing these games. I'd read all the stuff out. I'd do the voices.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing that of course all the text, it was a very conscious choice of ours, because we decided that this is effectively an interactive novel. Because we based this on a set of books, and so we wanted to preserve some sense of this being written as if Ray Feist had actually wrote this. Now, Ray was busy writing The King's Buccaneer at the time, and so he really didn't have time to sit down and play with us. And I every once in a while I would send him a raft of notes about stuff. He said, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, or Z, but and he'd write me back and go, Neal, you're an idiot. What the hell are you doing with my universe? But anyway, Ray wasn't super involved, and really the only real time that he really saw what was going on is whenever we got done. He sat down and played it, and apparently he got really sucked into it. He went with our marketing guy to CES and got sucked into it, and he wanted them to leave him alone so he could play the game. But yeah, the writing in the game, I tried as much as possible to channel Ray, which was a challenge because Ray is a New York Times bestselling author. And so I read through all of his books that were in the series that were available at the time at least 3 or 4 times during the course of making that game. And so I did as much as, so the challenge there is that not only that are you telling stories that feel right in his universe, but nailing his voice in that text. And that was a huge challenge, but I'm super proud of that particular little achievement. But anyway, it's the one thing that is surprising that at the time and particularly now, given the fact that all the games are out there, you have full, you've got cutscenes and you've got all of this, these things that are acted out and everything else, that, there are still people that love going in and playing this, and all of that text, let's read this game. And you're right about the amount of text that's in the game. There was actually more text, because I did a word count at the time. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but there was more text in the game than in Ray's longest novel. And that's text that you can see that's presented forward facing to the player, and it's not even getting down to the number of characters or whatever in the actual code. But yeah, so it's definitely a reader's game. If you like fantasy novels, you actually might enjoy this thing. And so it astonishes me the number of new players, people who are not old farts like us, who are discovering this for the first time and get into it. And like you say, there's this love of all things retro, that are bringing in new players, and they're on Twitch, and they're playing the games there. There are tons of like let's play videos on YouTube, and so it's kind of astonishing that this 30-year-old game is still gaining new players, new fans, and everything else. So that was part of my motivation for a little get together that I have planned. So I said, it's 30 year, I thought about doing something like this for the 20th or 25th anniversary, but things were just not really in the right place for me at the time. And so I decided, I want to go back up to Eugene, Oregon, which again is where Dynamics was and where the game got made. And I'm going to go try to grab as many of my old pals that are still around. And actually a significant chunk of folks who were part of Dynamics are still there. We're going to go to McMinimans, which, if you are a person from Oregon, that McMinimans, they're sort of like the franchise of McDonald's, except they're breweries, they're microbreweries, and they're all over Oregon, and just these amazing kind of restaurants that are up there, and restaurant/pubs. And so we're going to go to the North Bank branch of McMinimans in Eugene, Oregon, and we're going to have a massive party for the anniversary.
You got a little promo video here for it, right?
Yes, I do. So you can run that.
Roll that?
Sure. Why don't you roll that?
Let me roll that. There it is.
So there it is. And so June 23rd, we're going to have a big old party up there and get together with our fans and friends and just whoever wants to join us. And some people thought this is a developer only thing, but no, this is any lunatic that wants to actually go to Eugene, Oregon, which is significantly bigger, but it's a great town. So there we have a official kind of event meetup on Facebook. So if you want to go there to let us have a head count, so we know how many people are going to show up, so we can alert the restaurant to how many people are going to come in and invade the place. But we have a room that's reserved all ours called the Mutton Room. I don't know if we'll actually have any mutton, but it's called the Mutton Room. And we're going to have a cake. I'm working on live music and some other stuff. And so it's going to be a great evening of hanging out, talking about the game.
Sounds like the sort of event where you need minstrels.
Yeah, just be careful how you say that. But I'm working on some leads right now, and so part of Betrayal at Krondor, one of the little gags was you go in and you learn how to play a lute. So I'm going to try to find a lute player, have him come in and even play some of the songs that are in the game. So we'll see. We'll see. So I'm working on that. So but anyway, it's going to be a great time. Also planning possibly for anybody who decides to stick around for for Saturday, we may also do a group trip up to Powell's, which, if you are a book person, it is the largest independent bookseller in the world. It is amazing.
It's a cool place to visit, man.
It is a bookstore that takes up an entire city block in Portland, Oregon. It's 5 stories tall. You walk in the front door and they hand you a map.
Yeah.
That is a bookstore.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty much safe to say that I was there pretty much every other weekend. Whenever so all my paychecks from Betrayal at Krondor basically funded my book habit at Powell's. But anyway, so you might be getting the idea that I am a writer, and that books are important to me. And so something that's going to happen, we're going to come back to the book and actually let's go ahead and talk about the book thing right now. And so along with this particular event, we are choosing to spend all the attention that we are getting for this particular anniversary to help promote a charity that has been near and dear to me for a long time. It's called RIF. Now, when I was a little kid, back in the 70s and 80s, like half the commercials on television seemed to be from RIF. And RIF is Reading is Fundamental. And this is an organization that they promote literacy for children all over the world, and actually all over the United States. And they also provide books for disadvantaged children. There are a lot of kids who will never own, would never have a chance to own a book themselves simply because of poverty or other circumstances, which means they don't have their own books. And I can't really state how important it is to have your own, some of your own books that you can always go over there. And yes, you definitely want to go to the library. You want to go hang out and take advantage of those resources that are there. But it's great having some stuff right over there that you can pick up anytime. And I was sick as a kid. I had asthma that was really bad. And so how I got through a lot of asthma attacks was reading. And so that's really what turned me into a writer, was spending all that time in bed. I couldn't do anything. I'm stuck in a dark room with a humidifier going in the corner. And
right.
So I spent a lot of time reading. So anyway, riff.org, please go there. They have several different ways that you can donate. So you can either give them cash gifts, and then they will decide which programs internally they're going to use to, again, whether that's funding literacy programs, buying books for kids or whatever. You have the option. They have a Amazon list. You can go on their Amazon list and say, I want to buy Where the Wild Things Are. And you buy the book, and they're able to use that to distribute. So you can choose which books you want them to give. And so there's just a whole slew of different choices of ways that you can donate. So go to riff.org. And you can decide how you want to do it. And so if you can't come to our celebration, or even if you are coming to our celebration, that's a great way to at least show me your love and appreciation is to go back out and let's create more readers, because as I have a little PSA that I created that says, unless there are readers, there are no writers.
Right.
So
right. You want me to play the PSA?
Can we go ahead with the PSA?
Okay, let's roll that.
Hi, my name is Neal Hallford. I was the lead writer behind the computer game Betrayal at Krondor. I'm here today to talk to you about reading. If you don't know that game, it might surprise you that a game developer is advocating for literacy. But more on-screen text appeared in Krondor than in some modern fantasy novels. If I'd not been encouraged to read as a kid, and if I hadn't been a passionate lover of books, that game and many others would simply never have existed. Without readers, there would be no writers for computer games or movies or comic books. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of Krondor, I'm appealing to you to donate to RIF. Reading is fundamental. This fantastic organization supplies books to disadvantaged school children, as well as supporting literacy programs across the United States. Your donations will help spark the imaginations of the next generation of readers and ensure that love for the written word never dies. Visit rif.org for more information.
And that is it. And so again, we don't really have a official relationship with them. But again, if you would make donations to them, that is definitely the way that you'll repay your love to Krondor. For me, is making donations to RIF. And there's something else that so you get to be the show where I get to make the announcement about the next big thing, which is related to the anniversary party and specifically to the Krondor anniversary. And that is that starting next weekend, next Saturday, we're opening the door for the Betrayal at Krondor Fan Film Challenge. And so we have over the decades, I've had many people reach out to me that send me artwork. They send me stories. I have my good friend Damian, who is creating a role-playing game that's definitely inspired by Betrayal at Krondor called Call of Sargnar or whatever. I'm sorry, Damian. One of these days I will get that right. He is the sweetest, dearest guy. I actually met him.
I put your names on the podcast constantly, Neal.
I met him. I actually had the opportunity to meet him last year whenever my wife and I were on vacation in Europe last year. We were in Venice, and he brought his copy. He lives in Slovenia. He brought a copy of his Betrayal at Krondor, his box, and I signed it for him. And so anyway, so folks have used all these different ways of expressing their love and their fascination with Betrayal at Krondor. And one thing that we thought would be kind of cool to offer to people, because, as you know, a lot of the people that are dropping in here who know me as a game designer don't necessarily know the other side of what I do creatively as being a filmmaker. And of course, this is how David and I got to know each other, is that I have work in the sort of indie film community here in San Diego. And I said, it would be really cool. I have worked with different film festivals that are here in town. We made a short called The Case of Evil, which won some awards here, and it actually toured the United States and even a couple of countries internationally. And we won several awards with that. And I said, something that I dearly love, in addition to writing and making games, is making films. And so we said, let's open up a fan film challenge, because I've never seen a Betrayal at Krondor fan film. And I said, so why don't we do this in conjunction with our anniversary? Is we're going to host this event. And so between March 11th, so submissions will open on Film Freeway on March 11th, and they will run through the middle of May, and then we'll have some judges come in. We'll pick we'll have some official selections. I mean, I don't know if how many films we'll get, because honestly, this is going to be new to a lot of our folks. But we live in an interesting age.
We do.
And so over the past 10 years. The availability of filmmaking to ordinary folks has become, everybody has a movie camera in their pocket now, because you have something that my good friend Susie Botello from the International Mobile Film Festival. Full disclosure, my wife and I are actually sponsors of her film festival. So Swords and Circuitry, which is our production company. But as she frequently likes to tell people, says, you're always carrying a movie camera with you all the time. You really have no excuse not to make movies. And so I'd love to see what people will kind of come up with. And so maybe you reenact scenes out of the game, or maybe there's some scene in the game you wish that was in and there's a lot of text in this game, as we talked about. So take one of those text scenes and turn it into a little movie.
The interesting thing, Neal, is everybody's got a camera, but there's so much more cosplay in the world today.
Exactly.
Than there was 20 years ago, 30 years ago when the game came out.
The fact that we even call it cosplay.
It's got an official name now.
I'm wearing a costume. That's and of course you go to a sci-fi convention. Saturday night was always dedicated to masquerade. And so that's just what we call it whenever. So now we have a really cool name for it now.
Yeah, but there's so many people involved in doing it now, and who have incredibly rich talent.
Exactly. And so this is
that rivals anything in the movies.
And so this is tailor-made for it. Is going out.
It's beautiful.
The thing is that Betrayal at Krondor had this weird. We decided to do this weird, crazy thing where we dressed up members of our staff to play the characters in the game. So this was cosplay, except we had no budget for it. And like I feel, I want to say, Cheryl Tucker, I love you to death. You are the sweetest, dearest person in the whole world. And she got stuck with these crazy, here, I need you to go come up with medieval costumes, fully dress these characters. We need to film them for combat and for all this other stuff. So however many characters and monsters that are in the game, almost all of them are either are mostly friends of Cher's that worked in the community theater there in Eugene, Oregon, but a good chunk of them were also Dynamics employees. And so she had no budget for this, and yet somehow she still managed to come up with all this other stuff. And so cosplaying is absolutely related to kind of this game. And so that was one of the things I was thinking about, is the fact that we've got lots of people out there. Again, everybody's got a camera. Everyone's got a phone. The other issue is that you don't necessarily even have to do a live film thing. If you want to do animation, that's absolutely something to do. If you want to do a documentary about how Betrayal at Krondor changed your life, I have a handful of people. Damian is actually one of the folks that I mentioned earlier that was making this sort of back-alike game that he's making. He actually learned how to read English partially by playing Betrayal at Krondor.
Wow.
And he's not the only person I know that has that story. There's some other people that told me stories about that did not speak English as their primary language, but this was their gateway to English, was playing Krondor. And so many different people have told me stories about how playing Betrayal at Krondor changed their life or whatever. So if that's something that happened with you, tell us your story. Let us know what happened. So
do a little documentary film.
Yeah. You do a little documentary film, do comedy, mix,
pull the Legos out, do a Lego animation,
do a Lego. Yeah. Whatever you want to do. We want, the more creative you are, the more fun and exciting that's going to be for everybody else. And so our only stipulation is that it has to be related to the content of Betrayal at Krondor. So one thing that I do want to make sure that people know is so that because we are so what's going to happen is after we have these films judged, we're going to show official selections. This is something that film festivals do. They say, out of all of our selections, now we aren't probably going to have the same problem that most film festivals are, where they have 10,000 submissions and they've got to get, we've got to get 2 days of, we've got to get 2 days or 3 days of programming out of this, and people need to be able to go to the bathroom and eat and go home and sleep or whatever. So we've got to whittle down tens of thousands of submissions to get them down to 20 or 30 films. And so what they do is the films that are chosen to play are called official selections. And so we will pick the best of, for probably, depending on however many we get, probably somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes worth of things that we're going to show. Your shorts will be 3 to 5 minutes long. I just for a number of reasons. Number one, legally getting outside of 5 minutes, we start to get into territory of probably, possibly infringing on copyright with Ray's universe. And so we don't want to do this. These are fan films. This is just show us your love for whatever. And the great thing is there are lots of little kind of mini cutscenes during the game. Actually do a film version of those, better than we could have done back in the day. But anyway, so 3 to 5 minutes long, has to do with Krondor. Would say have some common sense. Don't no really crazy, sex scenes or explicit profanity or anything like that, because we are showing this at a public event, and we will screen them at our anniversary event in Eugene on the 23rd. We'll award the Gauntlet of Glory, which is for the best of show. There. If you aren't able to attend, we will send that to you. Obviously, any filmmakers, whether or not you got chosen to be an official selection or whether you are awarded, you're welcome to attend our anniversary get together in Eugene. You'll have about a month's notice before to know whether or not you got picked to be shown there. And then on the following day, on the 24th, we are planning to do an anniversary stream where we can have globally all of our fans from around the world. We'll hop on. We'll probably play the game. I think Kilgore Trout from GOG Games will probably be doing something with him playing the game, but we'll also show the films. We'll also maybe have some of the filmmakers come on for Q&As. So we'll have another big event on June 24th that will be online.
Awesome.
So anyway, I'm very excited. So right now, our first festival judge I mentioned before is that I talk a little bit about my friend Susie. So Susie again is the director of and the creator and the high muckety muck of International Mobile Film Festival that happens here in San Diego every year. We've got another one coming up here in April, and we have people that travel from all around the world to come in and watch the films. And all of the films that are presented there are made on mobile phones. So if you make your film on mobile phones, and as long as you kind of stick to Susie's guidelines, you'll probably want to pop over and look at her festival stuff. But if you create that, you might be able to submit that to her festival after this is over with. I'd also recommend that maybe you submit your film to Gen Con Film Festival, and there and the Origin Film Festivals that are out there. But anyway, so Susie is going to be one of our judges that we have for our festival. She was our first judge to accept. And something that is brand spanking new information, and so brand spanking new that I haven't had a chance to put it on the website yet, is if you notice here below my name here, see KrondorFFC.com. That is our informational site about the Fan Film Challenge. Also, if there's a link in there to Film Freeway. Film Freeway is where you will actually go to submit your film. Now, because we're regarded by Film Freeway as an online only festival, we don't really have a big screening venue that we're doing at McMenamins. And so that's it's going to be limited to how big that's going to be. And so we're not listing ourselves as a proper film festival. So because we are online only, you must explicitly have a URL to get to Film Freeway. We have a link to it from KrondorFFC.com, but the longer one is filmfreeway.com/KrondorFFC.com. You must have that URL to find it, because otherwise they listed it as private. And so that's kind of annoying, but that is the platform on which you will submit. But in any
case,
it's
really easy to use.
It's super easy to
get
use.
there.
Yeah, so you just have to know how to get there. So again, make sure that if you hit again the URL that I've got listed here below my name here, if you go there, then there is a link on that page to Film Freeway. They'll take you directly to where you want to go to submit. But the other thing I was starting to do, and I digress terribly because, well, I'm Neal, and I never stay on one topic ever, is that another judge that we just got last night is Bonnie Gordon. And Bonnie Gordon is a well-known voice actor, but she's also well-known as a computer, as the voice of the computer on Star Trek Prodigy. So she is one of our judges, and also she has done voice work for games, and so we're going to have some crossover. So we have a judge that knows both worlds that we're talking about, as games and films, and so we have some invitations out to some other kind of cool judges. I'm crossing my fingers. I don't want to jinx it, and So we'll just see who else is coming aboard. I have some other
More updates to come.
Some more updates to come, but I have some other film festival directors that I have invited to come and play with us. And so when you submit your film to us, you're also going to be submitting your festival in front of actual filmmakers and folks that if you are interested in the world of filmmaking, it would be good to get your eyes in front of these folks. And so,
well, and this will definitely be the type of film that'll appeal to the Comic-Con crowd. So
absolutely,
virtually every one of the big comic conventions has a film festival component too. So
yes.
like once you've made it for this, like you can submit it to all those. Like,
well, and the thing too is the fact that that both David and I here are both Comic-Con people, and I don't know if I will be able to have it again or not, but usually at Comic-Con, I host the narrative design panel at Comic-Con. And so getting your film out there and attaching it to this festival, a lot of the people who are watch David's show are people who help organize Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And
I have a number of people who work at Comic-Con who watch this
and are panelists there or whatever. So again, getting your Krondor fan film into our festival and where we're all going to be kind of promoting it. So if you have aspirations to being a fantasy filmmaker or whatever, this might be a good way to get started. Or if you've already got started, another great place to showcase your film. So I'm gonna. We do request that you not stream or show or present your film before our anniversary event, because that's part of our big selling point for our festival or for our anniversary events, is that we're going to show them. But after then, you are free to stream, show, submit them to whatever other festivals that you want to. But we're asking that we're your first stop, just so that we have the
premiere has to be with you, and then
the premiere needs to be with the Krondor Fantasy Film Challenge
and everything else afterwards.
And so I think those are all of the really big announcements or things that I definitely wanted to make sure that I got squeezed.
Yeah, we've checked off all the ticks on the list that I have here.
Or whatever. So does anybody David, did you have some other questions you wanted to follow up with, or
No, I was actually going to say let's give the audience one chance. Here's your chance, guys. Neal's here. He's ready to answer questions. If you just
I will answer
that
any
question down in the comments. Like we'll pull them up and he can answer them for you. If you just want to pay him a compliment.
As I always
Neal
say,
loves compliments.
I love compliments. I mean, or whatever, or cash prizes, or but anyway, yeah. So anyway, but yeah. So I've been filmmaking
says,
has
thanks
been,
for having me, Neal.
Oh yes, well, thank you, Susie. We're very excited that you're going to be involved because again, Susie's festival's fantastic. We're always happy to come in. I'm primarily Jane and I'm her tech guy, and so I set up all of the video and audio, and when things go wrong, I'm the person that you can come and scream at and blame for those things or whatever. Generally speaking, I think I do a pretty good job, but that's my own opinion. But
a compliment for you from Twitch.
Yes, thank you, Sonia. And I've definitely seen her on the Twitter and some other great places. And so there's Amber. And so Amber, yes, well, Amber, you're always welcome to pester me. I would like to think, I would like to, thank you. Susie has a cosplay event. Speaking of cosplay, Susie has a big old cosplay event that happens at her film festival. And so that's always a lot of fun. So if you are into cosplay and you like mobile films, and you want to come in, and whether you, so you don't have to make a mobile film to go to the film festival. And that's the one thing that I often grouse with a lot of other filmmakers, is that we go to film festivals so we can watch each other's films, The hard part sometimes is getting people who are not a filmmaker to come and watch because they don't know about them, or they just aren't really sure what they're going to get themselves in for.
Or there's snobs. There's
snobs.
still snobs out there. They're like, if you're not on
Yeah.
a full frame camera with a gigantic lens as big as my head, you're not really making movies.
Yeah.
And I tell them all,
yeah,
like
some of the
it's
stuff
a moving
that's
picture. That's what makes it movies.
yeah, it's a moving picture. Well, I mean, there was really nothing like, whenever I went to the first film festival that I was in was the Horrible Imaginings Film Festival. It used to be based here in San Diego.
Now it's in Orange
director,
County.
Miguel Rodriguez, moved it up to Orange County, but he still lives here. But the first time, I had The Case of Evil, because we premiered at the Horrible Imaginings Film Festival back in 2014. And that was really amazing because, you make this film, you shoot it, and then suddenly, bang, here it is on this gigantic movie screen. And oh my God, what an experience that was.
Yeah.
And you really feel validated, the fact that well, Amber, I whatever you would like to do, you submit. If you want to submit more than one, you're welcome to do so, or whatever.
Yeah, you do you, boo.
You do you. But the most important thing the thing that I really want to see is show us, your love, your passion for Betrayal at Krondor, because this is our
that's what will be most important here, right? Is like capturing that spirit of the game, the spirit of the fandom,
game, how it made you feel. That's really the big thing, because this is going to be a one-off event. I mean, I'm really imagining us doing this every year, but who knows? Maybe we get 10,000 submissions and go, holy crap. And so, okay, Jen. So Jen is part of our indie film community here in town. She's a sweet gal, and we just love her to death. And in terms of having a party, I hadn't specifically thought about it, but who knows? Maybe we will do something afterwards or whatever. So, if nothing else, we need to get together and hang out, because it's been since I was in the hospital.
That sounds like the
last time I saw
perfect
you.
Comic-Con weekend party to throw.
Yeah. And so, again, I want to talk to the San Diego Film Consortium, who are probably our largest local group of filmmakers. San Diego is kind of an interesting town because a lot of the people that live here, it's only about 150 miles up to Los Angeles. And so a good chunk of the people who live here in San Diego work in Los Angeles as actors, as film crew, producers, directors, and all those other folks. And so we have a pretty amazing local film community. And so probably abnormally large, given, if you just picked any random city, because we have 400 or 500, probably more than that, filmmakers who are very active here in the San Diego.
Who are incredibly talented and could be working in LA, but a lot of us just don't want to work in LA.
Yes. And the really cool thing has been is since I've been started, messing around with this going back to about 2004, is when I first got involved with it here, with the folks here. But the number of people that I know that have gone on is like, I'm watching television and go, oh, there's Merrick. Merrick was the star in The Case of Evil. And oh my God, he's in, so 10,000 people submitting 1-second clips for one movie. Okay. Well, it has to be between 3 and 5 minutes.
Like just the sum assembly required.
So, but our good friend Merrick, he was in The Case of Evil for us, but he's just everywhere. He was in All American as the dad. He is half the commercials that are on television down here are here all the time. But our good friend Randy Davidson's been in a couple of Oscar nominated films. He's also in, my other side project, which is our audio drama series, Uncharted Regions. You can kind of see the poster back here behind me. That's another kind of little side project, but we're not here to talk about that today because that's a whole other bag of cats. But anyway, but yeah, so indie film is a really exciting, fun place to be. The one thing that I was, Randy was a judge at the Independent Mobile Film Festival last year. And so, but again, so David and I, again, we met through this community down here. I would say that if you have a local film community, they are some of the most awesome people you will ever hang with in your life. I've just discovered that filmmakers are great people. And
there's a lot of crossover between the filmmaking community and the theater community, and
yes, and gaming community, and particularly
the improv community.
And so particularly these days, because with more people wanting like voice actors for their games, going and getting to know, if you are interested in game development, getting involved with the local filmmaking community is going to be a great boon for you. And again, I have several voice actors that we are using on our audio drama series, like I said, Uncharted Regions, and they came from the independent film community, but any of them would be spectacular in any computer, any game properties that I was working on.
Yeah.
So just fantastic people, and I just love the feeling of a film set. There's almost nothing like, other than maybe doing live theater, which I haven't really done since I was in high school. But I
did a little bit for Fringe Holiday in December, and it was amazing.
I did some stuff for Fringe, but I wasn't on stage. I was, again, doing tech. I
directed a little short play, one act play.
I've talked for a long time about doing a one-man show about the train wreck, because that might be kind of an interesting one-man show. But I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of work involved, and the problem is
this is what I love about talking with you, Neal, and talking with all of the rest of our filmmaking friends, is like, we'll start on one topic, and then creativity.
It's going to be all over the damn map, all over the damn map. But that's the thing that I love about creative people in general, is just, I don't. That's awesome. Which exhibit were you at? Did you go to the Experience in Vegas by any chance?
I wanted to get married at the Experience so bad when I was younger.
Another interesting fun fact, the Experience, almost all of the little displays that are there, the information that was on them was written by my buddy Larry Nemechek, who I am the director of photography for his documentary about a Star Trek convention gone horribly wrong called The Con of Wrath. At some point, I was chatting with David about this before. So one of these days, he'll actually finish that thing. We've been shooting it for, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years. I don't know. I think I was still in diapers whenever we began. But anyway, St. Louis Science Center.
Cool. Here's a comment directed directly for you here, Neal. Look at this one.
Okay. Looking forward to see what the fans do. I did. Oh, yes. That's so true. Oh my God. I wonder where that thing is. There was at Dynamics, which again was the company where Betrayal at Krondor was created. There were, at the Christmas party, we would make little short films to show during the Christmas holiday. And I'd totally forgotten about that. I don't even remember what it was, but all the different teams would come in. And so we had, the teams from, this Timothy. Timothy was the programmer who sat next to me. If you like the puzzle chests, the riddle chests, Timothy is the guy that handled all the code for the riddle chests.
Awesome. Welcome, Timothy.
And so Tim's going to be with us at the event in Eugene. And so I have one of the other programmers that I know is going to be there. I'm in talks with some other folks, and so we'll see what other team members I can drag kicking and screaming, because most of them are introverts, into whatever. So Gray, hey, you want to make a Christmas Krondor movie? I think you absolutely should do that. Is we should have a Christmas in Krondor, for that special holiday feeling of betrayal.
I'm so excited for this event. I mean, just the amount of interaction we're having on the podcast here. This is one of the most interactive episodes of the podcast we've had. I think you're in for a really great summer, Neal.
Can I throw in one other little thing? Is that if you're on Twitter or on Instagram or on Facebook, follow the hashtags Krondor with a K, Krondor, Krondor 30. Because every Tuesday and every Thursday, I throw out a 1-minute little trivia nugget about the making of the game. And so share and tweet those if you would like or whatever. But that's a little fun thing that we're doing to kind of encourage people to come and follow. Right? Yes, that's right. And so another version is just back 30, BAK 30. But that's perfect. Krondor 30 is I tag pretty much everything with that. And so every Tuesday and Thursday, we share these little kind of trivia nuggets about the making of the game. And so again, and I'm on pretty much every social platform that's out there for the most part, as long as it's not a loony, extremist right-wing platform, which I won't name. But pretty much all of the socials, I am out there. So I'm always available to ask questions. Again, David showed a link to our event. So I would definitely go and hit that if you want to attend, or if you, again, we have, if you want to ask questions or talk to other people who are attending, you can drop in there. And again, the website for that you want to hit about the film challenge, again, is krondorffc.com. And again, from there, you can get, once you have your film ready, you can go and drop onto Film Festival.
Awesome. Well, Neal, it's been over an hour discussion on Krondor,
which is pretty short for me, but
yeah, I'm gonna rein you in.
Mm-hmm. Shut up!
I got birthday party to get to.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, I appreciate everybody who came in to listen to your announcements today. Welcome to the podcast. I know a bunch of you. It's the first time you've tuned into the Intellectual. I hope that you'll like and subscribe and do all the things and keep following this podcast. We talk to creatives of all types, be it computer game makers to filmmakers to writers and painters and musicians.
They let me on, so
if somebody's in the creative field, we like to have a chat with them, and we generally try to mix up our guests with people with lots of experience and people just kind of coming up, because I like to kind of show what the journey is. And the journey of the creative is a complicated one. It's usually it's a lifelong mission of passion, and seeing where people are at and how they get where they're going and where that journey is currently taking them, I find to be just incredibly fascinating. And that's what the Intellectual is predominantly all about. And
it's a great show, folks. I mean, really, I'm not just saying that because they're having me on. Seriously, it's a great show, and he's had lots of fantastic guests over the years. And so, particularly if you're a geek, this is a fantastic show to follow.
Yeah, I'm a total geek. So anyway, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Neal, for coming on and sharing all this information here on the Intellectual. It's really a special honor to me to be able to be the platform that you make these announcements on. And I'll talk to you when the stream's done real quick. And everybody else, good. I hope I'll catch you on our next episode of the Intellectual. Until next time, I am David S. Dawson. You've been watching me with my good friend Neal. He's over that way. These mirrored cameras.
Yes.
And we'll catch you again down the road. Thank you all so much.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.